Telecommunications have come up in a big way in the last 4 or 5 years, and a lot of focus globally is on delivering remote connectivity and services in an affordable manner and in a reliable manner. On this today's panel, we have an esteemed set of speakers. We have Srimati Gunjan Dave. She is Member Technology at the Digital Communications Commission, Ministry of Telecom. She has been responsible for initiating policy decisions, driving technological advancements, and strategic decision-making in the telecommunications sector. We also have Sri Vijay Christopher. He is the wireless advisor for the Department of Telecommunications. His work has encompassed critical areas such as spectrum planning, licensing, spectrum auctions, radio monitoring, and satellite monitoring. We have Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt. He is a distinguished retired military officer and currently serves as the Director General of Indian Space Association. He brings a wealth of experience and expertise to the field of defense, human resources, and space. We then have Luis Felipe from GSMA. He is the Spectrum Engagement Director at GSMA and leads the GSMA campaign to access harmonized spectrum for mobile broadband. We then have Mr. Rahul Vats from Airtel. He is the Chief Regulatory Officer for India and South Asia at Bharti Airtel. He is also the Director at OneWeb and Vice Chairman of the Indian Space Association. He is renowned for his expertise in telecom licensing, economic regulations, spectrum management, and regulatory litigation. We also have Mr. Praful Kumar, Vice President Reliance Jio, and is currently working for implementation of NGSO-based satellite systems, including ground infrastructure. Last but not the least, I'd like to welcome the moderator, Mr. Naveen Agarwal. Mr. Naveen Agarwal is a senior partner and an office managing partner for the New Delhi NCR region for KPMG in India. He is also the partner in charge of US-India corridor practice and the national tax leader for the telecom sector. With this, I'd like to extend a warm vote of thanks to all the panelists and the moderator. And Naveen, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul, and good afternoon to all of you. Very warm welcome. It's great to be back here at the IMC. I've been sort of attending this event over the last few years, and I can only say that we keep constantly pushing the envelope in terms of the quality of conversations each year, and I hope today is going to be no different. ISRO's achievements, if we talk about space, the ISRO's achievements have proved without doubt that when it comes to technology, talent, and tenacity, India is second to none. And there's a lot that we have to be proud of as a nation. Also fair to say that we are witnessing unprecedented growth in space technology. In many ways, we've been an outlier to our global peers. Our indigenous innovation capabilities have helped us achieve a lot more with less. With the rise of digital revolution, whether it is fintech, edtech, health tech, agri-tech, or for that matter, anything tech, the focus is now on strengthening the nuts and bolts of the internet, the underlying electronics, devices, and products that power the internet, all with a view to bridge the digital divide. For the digital economy and India's growing clout in global technology landscape, satellite communication has significant relevance. The ubiquitous connectivity across the country will be the key driver for our $10 trillion ambition. Clearly, the next phase of India's transformative growth shall be defined by strong interlinkage between technology, satellite communication, and economic growth levers. There are studies to establish that a 10% increase in broadband penetration is expected to boost GDP growth by close to 1.38% in developing countries. Imagine the economic potential that satellite connectivity has for a country like India. The government, on its part, has been proactively channelizing investments in this sector, with further proposals likely in terms of relaxation in FDI and encouraging greater private sector participation. In my view, private sector has an important role to play in making India a global hub for satellite communication, whether it is in terms of talent development, innovation, or technology partnerships. We have a distinguished panel here today. I couldn't have asked for a more esteemed panel to discuss the potential of satellite connectivity in catapulting India's growth trajectory. Before I get into the panel, I also wanted to officially announce that we have launched this publication. Today, it's been launched in the presence of the Secretary, and we will, just reference to some data points which you'll find interesting in the report, that India's satellite communication market today is valued at close to $2.23 billion, which is in 2023. And this market is expected to grow to $25 billion by 2028. So significant jump that we're going to see in the next 5 years. Also, India is at the 4th place in terms of investments, $2 billion in about 110 firms in the space sector. And it has the 5th place in terms of private space companies and startups of close to 350. So please do read a copy of this. And with that, let me sort of now move on to our panel discussion. So, the session that the way we structured this panel is essentially around 4 themes, as I would say. The first is on policy and regulation, and we kind of mix it around. Second is on market opportunity that we see in this space. Third is on interlinkages, because there's interlinkages between space and other technologies. And fourth is on implementation. So we'll try and cover some of the questions around that. Let me start with Madam Dave. And the first is really around policy and regulations. Ma'am, we've seen the space policy being unveiled in earlier this year. And that's part of the opening up of the regulation in the whole satellite communications sector. But if you look at it from a global standpoint, how are governments really looking at this whole space of integrated communication? And this is obviously a catalyst to increase communication penetration. What role do you believe does satellite communication play in these strategies?
Hello. Yeah. So this integration is something new which has started coming up, and I feel it's very important that terrestrial and non-terrestrial technologies now do start getting integrated. And FCC in USA, they had come out with some consultation paper, but so far it has not been closed. And that was basically for integrating satellite communication with the 5G and terrestrial communication. As far as India is concerned, so far we have been very, very open in liberalizing the regulations and policies. With the new space policy which has come out in 2023, lot of space industry has been opened for the private sector. And so that is a very, in fact, encouraging move. And DOT also on its part, as far as satellite communication is concerned, we have liberalized the policies. So many charges, like 21 lakh rupees charge for NOCC has been reduced. Then spectrum allocation also has been simplified to a great extent. We have, in fact, after these simplifications, mobile VSAT users also have increased to a certain extent. So in that direction also we are moving. And as far as this integration part is concerned, we have also opened the license to GMPCS. So 2 operators have already been assigned the license, and already consultations are on for allocation of license to 2 more operators. Of course, spectrum part is still under consideration. So trial license we have given, and I believe that some use cases have already been demonstrated in today's, in this IMC. So from DOT side, we are very, very positive to move towards that direction. So the technological changes are the need of the hour. So as and when they happen, yes, of course, this has to happen. Thank you.
Right, thank you, ma'am. And I think that's a good segue to the next segment, which is really around the market opportunity. Maybe I'll address this question to Mr. Lewis. Satellite communication is seen as a solution to provide connectivity in the remotest of areas. And that's obviously going to provide a fillip to the entire economic activity in the hinterland. It's also going to address the underserved communities across India. So can you talk a little bit about the role SATCOM can play in bridging this digital divide, and especially which is important for countries like India?
Of course. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me and for the opportunity to have the GSMA participating in such an important topic to discuss this orbital voyage of connectivity, because I think it's incredibly important for us to discuss, of course. I think before I actually go a little bit more in detail, is just to say that from the GSMA perspective, our goal is to have everyone, everything, everywhere, etc., connected. So, and with that in mind, it's important for us to see some numbers and understand what can be done and how different technologies can work together towards that objective, right? So whenever we talk about India, for example, we are talking about a country with 1% of coverage gap currently. So we're talking about 99% of population covered by 4G. It's even better than just saying connectivity with mobile broadband. It's with 4G. And then we have to think together to tackle two different things. One, this coverage gap that is here 1% and around the world on average 4%. And we also have to work together towards working on supporting the connectivity gap that is still 50% here. And it continues to be 55% around the world. So with that in mind, the view of connecting the unconnected and covering the non-covered is a work together. It's for us to do with different technologies in different places, depending on where it makes more sense, where there is more value to be done using spectrum, but also resources and public and private resources to make sure that we deliver that so everyone is connected. That 1%, but as well as, even more important, those 50% they are not yet connected to the internet. So what is happening currently, just to in summary, whenever we talk about this conversation between different services, our members are, and you all have seen throughout this and as well as in the media and what has been done, our members are more and more attached to all the conversations whenever it comes to non-terrestrial networks and how to do that together in partnerships, in different types and levels of partnerships. I can, of course, in different questions, I can talk about those, but I think that's the goal. So on your question, it's basically we all have to work together on things that are not just what technology is delivering that, but how we make sure that everyone is connected. And still, lack of literacy and affordability are the ones that are stopping us from have those 50% connected.
Thank you, Lloyd. So connecting the unconnected and covering the uncovered is what you mentioned. Having understood the importance of SATCOM in bridging this digital divide, my next question is to Rahul. Rahul, if you could talk about, from your experience, what are some of the advantages that you see SATCOM offer, in terms of deployment, rapid deployment, in terms of flexibility, reliability, consistency, scalability, all those areas which in some sense are important and complementary to traditional mobile network connectivity.
Thanks, Naveen and Rahul, for this invite. I think let me start 20 years back. We were just fresh in telecom, and there was this satellite called Iridium, which was making its way around the world. And we were just starting up the terrestrial networks in India, early days. And we were wondering that if Iridium is going to give the same thing, then what are we setting up the networks for? That was 20 years back. Fast forward now, 20 years hence. What has changed in the world is the miniaturization of the chip, your capacity to now spend much and more powerful rockets to take more satellites up in the air, and the technology. So why do we need satellite now, given that we are now covering large parts of the world? Louis gave a number of 99%. I think that number, if I look at the population, quite accurate maybe. But if I look at the geography in India, I think we are still covering around 92%. So that's 8% for a country like India, huge gap in terms of having connectivity everywhere. It's stark everywhere, by the way. If you go to US, large tracts of land not covered till date, any network at all. We have a USO fund in India. Madam is aware, sir is aware. There is a RDOF in US, the Rural Development Opportunity Fund. What is it being used for? For satellite connectivity, right? So why do you want satellite? Because you want to start on day one at a pace. There was a time when we had a geo connectivity where you get a class of service. The world has evolved. You have got 5G handsets. Customer is now attuned to a minimum grade and quality of service. If I go and sell him an edge service today, unlikely that he'll buy it. What happens now with the transformation of Leo is that you are actually able to give customer a broadband-like experience, right? You can give him latency. You can give him same use cases he can experience on real broadband in life. And that is what is triggering this next wave of interest. I went with last year with the Secretary Sir to Arunachal, around 30 kilometers above Tawang. Our soldiers were there on that border. There was no coverage. No coverage. The nearest coverage point for them was down 15. They could talk to their families. Imagine being there in that cold, 40 days at a stretch, they were there, no coverage. That's the use case. That's what you're looking for, right? So you want ubiquitous connectivity everywhere, anytime, for everybody, and now the technology allows it. The latency gives you better, chances, and the scalability of doing it anywhere is really apparent. In our OneWeb stalls out here, we have shown you two use cases. One is a case where you can actually carry the equipment along with a solar panel, right? And you can just tie it up to your car, go anywhere, there is no electricity, no problem. Use the solar cell and tie up. Second use case we are showing is that of actually a portable UT where you can carry on a backpack. Imagine a group of 4 soldiers going up at a place where they don't want to have connect or they don't have any coverage. They just carry it on their backpack, reach a point, start beaming up and talking. So that's, I think, the scalability as far as the satellite is concerned. So I think this is the right time. The technology has evolved for us to be able to cover more and more tracks now.
Thank you, Rahul. So we talked about regulations opening up. We talked about the market opportunity. In some sense, Rahul alluded to how this is covering some undercovered areas and some use cases building. Let's try and understand the implementation aspects now. And maybe my next question is to Sri Christopher and also to Lieutenant General Bhatt. Maybe we'll come back to you as well. And that is relating to the cost. I think the cost has been a significant deterrent, if I may say, in the deployment of this technology. With the integration now that we see happening in the entire space of satellite communication with terrestrial networks, that's, to my mind, a paradigm shift, and that's going to have a significant impact on the cost profile of expanding networks. So maybe if you could start, sir, with talking about how you've seen the cost structure evolve over time, and what are some of the cost-effective strategies that are being implemented now to make SATCOM more accessible, particularly in the developing regions, or developing countries like India?
Thank you. Traditionally, satellite has been a proprietary technology, and the launching, maintaining the satellite, etc., were quite costly. As a result, bandwidth was very costly. Though this technology was there since 1980s onwards, but bandwidth is, if it is costlier, then volume does not go up, and if volume does not go up, bandwidth cost does not come down. That was the situation. Now 5G has come. We are talking about integrating terrestrial network with non-terrestrial network and all. So the satellite industry has taken note of that, and they are showing so much enthusiasm. So that way, coupled with 3D 3D printing, computer-aided design, and all these things have created a situation where cost is coming down drastically. Similarly, launching cost also has come down. Satellite size and weight also substantially has come down. Using efficient solar panels which are very light. So this technology has changed, and along with the standardization that is happening, when it is brought under as standard, then I think there will be major changes. As release, I think 18 or 17 has done, so 18 is coming up. So it 3GPP. So all these technologies, we hope that there will be a drastic change and satellite is going to pick up.
Thank you. Lieutenant General Bhatt.
If I may add in what he has said, the most important part is there has been disruptive technology. What has been the disruptive technology? From a geo satellite, which was bigger than a room, a large side bedroom. Today, the same work is being done by a satellite which is double the briefcase. If you see the Elbit satellite, it is smaller than a briefcase. This is what has happened in technology, disruption. What has it brought down? The cost. The second is what Starlink has achieved and also OneWeb has achieved is the number of satellites they have brought in. So the volumes will help in reducing the cost. As initially maybe it looks and it may be a little costlier, but as users will increase, the cost will come down. Even in geo satellites, these high throughput satellites with focused beams, multi-beams and all, have brought down the cost of satellites as such. But still, as on today, it cannot compete with what is there in terrestrial in India. There would be a policy support which is very essential. One policy, many of them, initiatives have been taken, as Ma'am Dave has said, in the last year in reducing many license fees and other things and all, but much more has to be done. And the two essential things which have to be done is, one is spectrum has to be given at a cost which is not very heavy. And hence, we have been always saying administrative means of giving spectrum will ensure that the cost does not go higher. That is a very, very essential part of it. And secondly, the government will have to use Universal Service Fund, which USO fund, to offset some of the cost in the beginning. If we have to give communication to far-flung areas in Arunachal, in Leh and Ladakh and other places, the government has to look at digital connectivity, which the Prime Minister said is more important, not what the government earns. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. I think we got some good inputs in terms of how far we've come in terms of technology adoption and revolution in terms of bringing down the cost, but what more is required in terms of policy intervention to bring the cost down further. But let's continue with the theme around, and let's talk about innovation when you talk about implementation, because this is one area, like any other technology sector, where innovation will be a constant force and will play an important role. And we're already seeing India making significant strides. The seventh largest funding in terms of international space that we're seeing in this sector. So with so much happening in the sector, my question to you, Praful, really is that what do you see as some of the latest innovations happening? There are, of course, new constellation types, onboarding of new processing capabilities. So how are some of these innovations shaping this entire industry?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Naveen, for the question. I have advantage as well as the disadvantage answering last, because a lot of things already have been told, but I'll try to get some new thought on this. So when I talk about the innovation in terms of the technology and trends, so I would like to segregate these in 2-3 portions involving the overall of SATCOM domain, which involves the payload, spacecraft, launching the satellite, as well as as a completeness, the ground segment. So if we see with respect to the launching of the satellites, a lot of improvement have been seen because of the reusable launch vehicle and utilizing the similar systems again for the launching. So there was a time when the $4,000-5,000 per kg was the mass or payment required for the launching of a spacecraft. It has been gone down by 1/10, and after the new launch vehicle, which is SpaceX planning like Starship, it's going to down further. And second, if we talk about the propulsion system, now we see the electrical propulsion is being used in most of the satellites. And because of that, now you can increase your payload. So earlier, if we are launching the 300 kg satellite, in that 200 kg was the fuel because of the chemical propulsion. Now, because of electrical propulsion, most of the portion is a payload, which is going to give you the most of the capacity which you can earlier get because of the chemical proposal maybe four time, 5 time of the capacity with the same mass. Now coming to the payload point of view, lot of improvement has been seen. There is a shift from lower frequency band to higher frequency band, which is going to give you the most of the throughput. And there is a software-defined systems are coming in the payload now, which is giving a flexibility and scalability in a satellite. For example, you can shift the power or frequency from one beam to other beam. You can steer your beam to the different location where you need the more capacity, which was not possible in the fixed beam. There was a place where you have a capacity, but there is no user because fiber connectivity is there. But there are some places like Northeast, the border areas, islands, where you need most of the capacity, but there is no capacity because of the fixed beam. Now, because of this flexibility, you can use the full spectrum at that particular location. So these are the improvement in terms of the payload, and there are higher aperture size of terminal on the spacecraft, which gives the sharper roll of very smaller narrow beam where you can have a higher EIRP and G by T, finally the throughput. If I talk about the ground segment, there has been a lot of improvement from a reflector to the flat panel, which gives a, like tracking issues and all will not be there. And there are digitization in the gateways. So what happened currently, if you see there is a RF cable, all the things are running by each system, there are cables. Now what happened, if you convert it to digitize, then IP you can have any place you can connect to the cloud, and all these capex you can avoid. So these are the improvements overall in the satellite which we have seen, and which is going to give a maximum throughput, and because of that the cost is going to down in the future. So these are the few innovations.
Thank you for going into the technicalities of this, but we've covered a good spectrum of starting from regulation, going into opportunity, market opportunity, talking about cost and talking about all the innovation. Ma'am, if you could go back to, you've sort of been, I'm sure as industry interacts with you, you get an assessment of what's really shaping the use cases that we see in this particular sector. So ma'am, if you could share with us a little bit, illustrate to us as to what you're seeing are some of the use cases for these technologies, where these technologies can make a significant impact.
So as Rahul had already pointed out, one of the biggest use cases for providing the connectivity to remote parts of the country. As you know, India is a big country and with a varied regions, geographical regions. So we have deserts, we have mountains, and we have forests, and many of the forests are also inhabited. So it becomes very difficult when we go to provide connectivity either through mobile towers or through fiber. So satellite is a very, very handy thing, and with this MEO and LEO satellites having been launched by the operators, it becomes very easy to provide connectivity to those parts, and the mission of fulfilling, connecting the unconnected and digital connectivity to all. So both can be fulfilled by using this technology. Then second use case, as Praful already pointed out, so now the technology has advanced to a greater extent. We can connect a large number of IoT devices with the integration of technologies happening. And it would be easy to provide connectivity to a number of IoT devices. So that could become a second use case. And also backhaul is already there. So always we have been using satellite as a backhaul media, and very important thing that providing connectivity to the sort of providing redundancy and also providing connectivity during disasters. So recently there was a disaster sort of situation, flash floods in Sikkim, and a large part of North Sikkim was totally cut off. And at that time, VSATs came into, like they were a great help, and defense could connect so many parts of that area using VSATs. In fact, we also, DOT also arranged to provide some additional devices to that part of the country to connect it to the rest of the India. So if we see the satellite, it becomes a very, very good medium for providing redundancy and resilient connectivity. So I feel, and of course, all these ships, maritime and aeroplanes, aeronautics and moving vehicles. So they can always be connected once the, now like already the technology is there, we have to implement. So it is already there, so that also becomes one of the very important use cases.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I think maybe, Sri Christopher, if you can just double click a little bit from an industry use case standpoint. And of course, the application would run across different industries, whether it's agriculture, whether it's healthcare, whether it's banking, industrial automation. So if you look at across the spectrum, what in your world are some of the real life examples that you're seeing that is really shaping or transforming some of these sectors?
Well, see, IoT technology, if it is actually gel with the big analytics and cloud computing, it's become a very good combination, data processing. So IoT sensor technology has also improved over the last few years. Because, with a single battery, it can survive up to 5 to 10 years also. There are sensor technology like that. So on the satellite side, planting more, low density sensors in a big area, that is where satellites come into picture. Not in a limited area, but when you spread over a wide area, this satellite IoT makes sense, It can find application in banking, agriculture, or many areas like oil refineries, wherever oil things are, oil is, then we can say in the medicine, whatever you said. So, for example, in financial side, if you want to check the credit worthiness of a particular person which is not connected in the mainland, then these VSATs or IoT can make use of that. Data can be transferred online and can be verified, and credit worthiness can be checked, and financial transaction can take place. Similarly, crop management, you see crop, it is a big area where, you have to manage the crops, then soil conditions, irrigation, everything can be monitored using this satellite. There is a lot of opportunities in that farming also. And modern technique like, irrigation, all these things, these sensors come into play where we can use this to transfer a lot of data over the satellite. As far as IoT is concerned, it has become a standard now. So this find a lot of applications. And if you take the oil sector, there are lots of meters of pipes, oil pipes we have to monitor. You need something like that. You cannot put any other things there in a remote area. You have to use sensor technology only. And if you take the medical field, remote consultation, remote surgery, all these things are happening because of this connectivity using VSAT or this NGSO satellite.
Yeah. Okay, I think that was a great coverage on the use cases. Let me come a little bit towards some other implementation challenges. And I think one of the challenges is really in terms of areas around signal strength, latency, and Lieutenant General Bhatt, if you could throw some light with all the advancements that you're seeing in technology at large, what changes are you seeing, or how will these challenges be overcome to improve the effectiveness and quality of satellite-based communication?
So again, I'll come to the historical issue. Historically, geo satellites were the preferred satellites, and they were at 36,000. And one of the challenges of it, and why it didn't become popular as a communication was latency. And this is the disruption which has been brought by the new players, OneWeb, Starlink. They've come down to 500 kilometers from the earth, reduced latency significantly. In fact, as Rahul said, broadband, you can, if you are a user, you will not come to know is it from terrestrial or is it from satellites. So that problem has been removed significantly. And even in satellites at MEO and GEO, the high throughput satellites with focus beams, what he is talking about, has reduced the problem of signals as well as also providing communication much closer. There are other things, the spot beams I mentioned, and another thing which has happened is inter-satellite links. And these inter-satellite links are by laser or by optical means. And this reduces the number of hops which a satellite communication will take. So the strength will stay stronger and the latency will be lesser. So many technologies today have come. This was a problem of strength and latency maybe a decade back.
Okay.
Most of it has been overcome. That is what I will say.
Right. Thank you. I think one of the conversations which is centerpiece today is the whole area of interlinkage with 5G. And my question to ma'am and to Luis both is really, this is a promising application in the context of SATCOM. It has the potential to address some of the challenges in terms of coverage, also complex use cases which cannot today be delivered by terrestrial communications. So can you just throw some light on how satellite communication is contributing, A, to the rollout, and B, to the implementation of 5G networks, especially in the context of challenging terrains that you spoke about earlier, ma'am?
So as is well evident, with NGSO's launch, the latency part has been taken care, and the broadband speeds also are very high nowadays. So if we can directly, when with the 3GPP releases, the integration has already started. And we already saw that in one Apple device is already having a chip through which you can directly get the satellite signal on your mobile handsets. So the situation of the handset that earlier we used to have a satellite bulky sort of handset, so that issue also can be resolved once we go for the integration of the types of devices, the integration of the two technologies. So, and that is going to be very, very handy because now the users need not carry two handsets. Moreover, the satellite handset has not been very cheap. So, like if we compare the costs of the satellite handset versus a normal mobile handset, so the cost is a big hindrance if we want to really deploy these type of handsets for the remote and far-flung parts of our country. So I feel the integration is definitely going to help, and we have to really keep moving towards the direct satellite, direct handset and communication between normal handsets and the satellites. So I feel, yeah, he can
Luis.
throw some more light on this.
Of course. And I'll for sure mention that because it's impossible not to. But before I do that, I would like to say, because there is an understanding that relationship between mobile operators and satellite companies is something new. The same thing that Rahul was mentioning is that satellite connectivity is not something new. We talked about this a long time ago, and new things are appearing whenever it comes to that. The relationship between the operators and the satellite companies is not something new. It's been a long, long time that operators and satellite companies have agreements, and I'll get to the new ones. But before that, it was about backhaul, and if we think about the situation of 5G now. We're talking about 1.5 billion people connected around the world with 5G that we are getting to this year, 100 million just in India. And we'll then see with 5G the growth of data usage. Of course, that's what happens whenever new technology comes, new use cases come, etc. So that is one of the first relationships, is that continued partnership that has happened since ever, That is the backhaul and maintaining that capability that operators need in areas where it's not possible to do backhaul, if not with satellites. That percentage revolves around 2%, and we believe that continues to be around that. But remembering that those 2% continue to be percentage-wise the same, but grows, because we need more backhaul to deliver what we need for 5G. So that's the first point, that there is a direct relationship with 5G, is the continued work together for backhaul and for that delivery. And the second thing, of course, is what has changed. So we're talking about GEO, but now we're talking about LEO. We're talking about constellations. We're talking about things that are different than they were before. So with that in mind, we're moving from, and I think Rahul was clear that we're moving from basic connectivity to a 3G-like speed that we're seeing currently now, and things that I don't know exactly what they will be, but I understand people that are very close to the development of that will see even better connectivity when time goes by and when time comes. So that is what we are seeing currently, is that lots of our members are having, I mentioned in the first question, they are having more partnerships, but those partnerships are in lots of cases related to direct-to-device or direct-to-cell connectivity via LEO constellations. So in that direct-to-device situation may seem very interesting, and I believe that, but there are lots of things behind it for that to actually be possible. We have spectrum usage that requires spectrum in bands that in lots of cases are IMT bands, and we need to make sure that coexistence exists, and that all the regulatory side of it, around it, is fulfilled, so that's possible to be done as well. But what I can summarize here is that, one, it's not new, and it will continue to be a partnership that delivers that backhaul for 5G including, and that grows, although the percentage is not what's growing, it's growing in the capacity and the quantity. And second, there are new things coming up, and those new things that are coming up will also require that relationship to be built within this new era or this new side of technology, and that directly relates to 5G, because technology grows, and that also includes that those partnerships with satellite companies.
This conversation is too good to be true right now. Okay, we've talked about everything good. There is the business case, there's the regulatory environment is conducive, opening up, the cost is coming down, innovation is happening, there are use cases, enough use cases to talk about, the interconnection is happening. Let's talk about challenges, right? And who better, we have two industry folks here to talk about some of the challenges that are there, both on the technical side and on the regulatory side. So Praful, maybe I'll start with you to talk about some of the technical challenges that need to be addressed, and maybe then I'll come to you, Rahul.
Yeah, thanks, Naveen. So as in my previous question, I replied about the innovations. So any innovations comes with challenges. So in this case also I can divide these challenges in the three portions: technical, regulatory, and then the pricing, capacity pricing. So when I talk about the technical challenges, because now everything is moving, earlier there was GSO, your antenna was stable, no tracking, nothing. Now everything is moving because of the NGSO, your satellite is moving, your antenna is moving. So interference, RF interference is going to be a real challenge in coming days. It's good innovation, good technology, very high throughput we are going to get. But this challenge, how to mitigate, it is going to be a real challenge for the regulator, for the manufacturer of antenna, for the satellite operators. And apart from that, if we see, we are, again, new innovation is the flat panel antenna. So earlier we were using the parabolic reflector. There is a ITU standards, the side lobe, main lobe, all these things. These are the new systems. Currently it may be thousands or lakhs of number. Once this innovation is going to happen, it can be the million, billion. And that interference, how it's going to be resolved, everything is moving. There are n number of gateway. So in my view, this is going to be a real challenge. If I talk about the regulatory, as already ma'am has mentioned, so year 2023 was a very positive reform in terms of the satellite communication. Most awaited Spacecom policy is out. Things are very clear. Antenna verification test has been you can yourself just test declare, and that is not there. NOCC charges has been removed. IRGR for NGSO is out, which is very clear cut now how we are going to use. But still, In my view, there are a lot of improvement is needed. And the first, what I would like to say is true sense of single window clearance. There are multiple approval is needed, sequential way of handling the things. So that is one point which I want to bring out. And second point is because of this new technology and innovation, there we need to think as industry, as a regulator, how we are going to provision regulatory provisions for this NTN, integration between satellite and all. There is a clear cut of regulatory provision is needed, as he was mentioning that we are going to use the similar IMT spectrum or whatever. So how it is going to coexist, what are the technicality that need to be addressed. And if I come to the last point is known to everyone, is still satellite is luxury. Cost is very high compared to the fiber. It is drastically going down because of the innovation is technology, but still it is high. So these are the three challenges which I would like to bring to your notice.
Rahul, your comments, please.
Yeah, thank you. So let me first, let me go back on the cost question because that is bothering me since the time you triggered it. I thought when that turn comes back, I'll go back on the cost. I think cost answer, Naveen, is where you started. The societal benefit of increase in penetration on the GDP, right? So it's not a question of cost. It's the question of intent and opportunity, right? Do you want all your uncovered areas connected? Yes, no. Yes, because it benefits the society, take that call. Do you want to build roads in places where there is no connectivity? Answer is yes, because it impacts the society. I will make that road. So similarly, do you want to connect the areas which are unconnected? Is there cost? Yes, there is cost. But do you want them connected? Answer is yes. So I think the question is of intent and cost and societal benefit. It's not purely a question of cost. It's the way I would like to see it. Now let me come back to this question about challenges. But before the challenge, let me see what is hanging in front of us. Again, the opportunity part of it. So there was a study done by, I think you have done some study. Sorry, I have not gone through it, but I will. There is a study done by General Bhatt through EY. Then there is a Deloitte study which InSpace, the regulator, just released a few days back. So it talks about right now Indian contribution to space economy, 2%. Right, that's where we are. Mr. Goenka, the InSpace chairman, tells us that in next 5 years we should jump to 5, go up to 8% by 10 years time. So and we are talking about a $600 billion market, and that is the potential as far as we are concerned, right? So that is what is hanging in front of us when we talk about the opportunity. We have already seen offshoots of Skyroot, at least 3 startups closing their funding in India to be able to now participate in the world and fight in the world to get their space. So that's the opportunity part. Let's come to the challenges part. I think Praful very nicely summarized into 3 buckets. Let me just change the lens and say that if I have to see the challenges, I will break them up into maybe procedural, some bit of that relating to some strategic choices to be made, and then look at ease of doing business. So ease of doing business is simple. He was right. We still have a large windows to clear, right? And though we have got very enterprising people who are in charge, Mr. Nirania is here, excellent amount of work which he is doing as the DDG, and Madam is there. So a lot of support we are getting. But the fact is that there are a lot of stakeholders, which is understandable. Eventually, we have to reach to a point where there is a single window for an operator, right? And that makes the life easy, and I think it will happen over time. Second thing is, how do I tackle the strategic part of it, which is that when do I get the raw material to be able to give the service? So we are in throes of a consultation. The consultation will end. It will lead to spectrum allocation. So that's the strategic part, right? If we don't have that in place, then we might just miss the opportunity to even ride on this bus, right? So if the spectrum is priced obnoxiously high, and that to a non-exclusive spectrum, it closes the window on you to be able to ride onto it and gain the benefits out of it. Then there are benefits, then there are challenges which we see in making India a hub for satellite communications. For example, if I'm setting up the gateway today in Mehsana, can I use that Mehsana hub to give service in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, in Bhutan, in Bangladesh, in Maldives, why not? If the governments out there are willing to cooperate, I would ideally like to do that, right? And that's the model. Like, as OneWeb, I don't have a gateway in all the countries. I just have 40 gateways in the world. And the gateway is shared across countries. So I need an enabling regime, and I'm sure the government and the regulator will work on it. So that's a challenge for me. A little bit of clarity on that will help. Approvals. Today we get approvals. We say, okay, you got an approval, but for land mobility, you will have to come across separately, right? If I'm launching my service in mobility today, I am required to do standard interception tests. If I'm willing to certify and say I will do the same test, then why should I be subject to any more other separate clearance? Should be treated on par, right? So those are the sort of procedural things which will, and the clarity on these subjects is going to help. But the biggest chunk of it is, we have seen the Spacecom policy, it has been revealed. We are waiting for the real things to now come up. So foreign satellite capacity is being sold. So right now we had to go through ISRO, the NSIL, and then do a markup, etc. That is gone, but we still need the actual paperwork around that. And the biggest, which might also interest you, is the FDI. So we've been waiting for period now, and we hope General Bhatt is here, that we are able to crack the FDI piece pretty fast, because that's a very important piece for you to be able to have certainly to invest more and more into this sector. So those are the things I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're kind of coming to the close, and maybe just a couple of questions before we wrap up. General Bhatt, from you, no conversation would be complete without talking about sustainability, right? We're already talking about potential congestion in the Earth's orbit as more and more satellites are there. Space debris is also an emerging challenge. What do you think are some of the steps that are being taken to address this issue of sustainability of satellite communication systems, especially the risks around space debris?
So if there is one big challenge after the number of satellites has increased, and definitely they've increased by a large number. 2022 has had the maximum number of satellites which have been launched. And in fact, it was nearly, the figures in the last 2 to 3 years have more than doubled. The figure today is about 15,000 satellites which have been launched, out of which about 7,000 are active as on today. But what is the bigger challenge is the debris. And debris which can be detected are of 10 centimeter and above size. They are more than 30,000. And the ones which cannot be detected by any means are 130 million, that is 10 centimeter and below. And they move at a speed of 7 to 8 miles per second. They are all like bullets in the sky. So today, the first challenge is the satellites which are existing. And what has happened is everything, the large number of satellites have got concentrated in the LEO, in the low Earth orbit. So previously there was a rule that if your satellite, for the GSO satellites and for the LEO satellites, that either you had to send them, please, would you pay attention, please?
Excuse me. Can we have your attention? Yeah, please. Yeah.
They had to be sent to the graveyard orbit if they were in the GSO, or in LEO, after some time, they were required to be deorbited. They would come down. The time period was 25 years. Now, US government is thinking of reducing the deorbiting time for LEO to 5 years. But internationally, there is no agreement on it, and that is a challenge.
Right.
That will have to be done. Otherwise, sustainability in the low Earth orbit will become a very major challenge.
Right. Okay. So one,
Let me just
yeah.
take some brownie points for OneWeb. So, so our satellites, through software commands, you can actually deorbit the satellite just as a part of being responsible towards space. So the way they have been made is that you can actually give commands to deorbit, just to help on that.
Sure. Okay, now just one quick remark from each one of you as we close this. If you had to really tap the potential that this, huge opportunity is in front of us, one advice that you would give, and we have both government and private here, one advice that you would offer to, and I would say business would offer to government, and government would offer to business. to leverage this opportunity. Let's make it that way, right? So, ma'am, your advice to the industry.
My advice is that the services should be affordable, and of course, the other benefits will be just falling only if it is affordable. And one reminder, like one comment I want to make. So Rahul was asking ki whether there is an intent. Yes, government has the intent to provide services to rural areas, and so far we have also provided services on VSAT also in the rural areas. So there is, we will not stand behind if we have to offer services on the new NGSO also on to these far-flung areas. So that commitment from the government side is always there. USOF fund is being utilized for that purpose, and will continue to utilize it for that reason. But that doesn't mean that the private industry doesn't take their responsibility. They have to be equally responsible to provide the services.
All right, thank you. Sri Christopher.
Thank you. I would, mention about the regulatory part. See, ITU has been doing satellite and terrestrial in separately as two distinct, disparate things. So now technology has come that it is going to integrate. So as a neutral body, ITU will find out a harmonized spectrum for this kind of. So as a neutral body, we also should follow the regulations, whatever is under the ITU. So we should follow that. For example, S-band and I think S-band and L-band are used now, but they are not harmonized. It is not available everywhere. So those kind of things will create problem for the regulatory side. So I think our industry also should participate in this kind of, in the WRC, there are some issues going to come in that.
Right. Lieutenant General Bud.
You know, the government took a historical decision on June 2020. A strategic sector, they have opened it to private players. It's a great opportunity for the country. And all of us sitting here, on my right and left, we have all to go together to ensure that usage of space, which is increasing every day, from the strategic to the private sector, we should be frontline players in the world. And that would require cooperation, and strong support from the government.
Right. You sort of played the balance in between, right, Rahul?
No, I will just say that, as far as India is concerned, SATCOM is like a baby, right? It's a nascent sector. It's just coming up in a big way. The PM has given his vision. There are right policy steps taken. So it requires a little bit of hand-holding as this tries to grow itself, right? Like a child requires parents to help him grow or her grow. Similarly, this sector will also require a little bit of, support of the government so that we are able to see through, the very first steps, and then the fruits of it will energize the sector, and then it rolls like a normal sector. So a little bit of hand-holding from the government is what.
Louis?
Yeah, from my side, I think I was very positive in most of my comments here, but I just want to also talk about the burdens that exist through the process of making those things happen. So that would be my final mention. Of course, the first comment that I made is that we all work together here, doesn't matter which type of service, towards the usage gap, and that's something we cannot forget about. And also, my second comment is about considering all we said here, there is a lot of, including the baby conversation, there is a lot of regulatory decisions to be made whenever it comes to this new era of connectivity, heterogeneous connectivity, connected, interoperability, doesn't matter how we want to call it, but we need to make sure that there is level playing field and everything is considered throughout this process. The telecom industry has lots of burdens related to quality of service, related to obligations, related to lots of things that have to be considered throughout this process that we cannot forget, because those are regulatory things, and spectrum as well cannot be forgotten, as that was mentioned here, and how it works, and how those coexistence issues are solved. So just a note of what has to be thought, what has to be part of the thoughts next.
Right. Praful?
Going forward, two suggestions. One is, as much as possible, payload should be a software-centric, provide the better flexibility, and because of that, I can say, today in our booth, we have demonstrated using a single terminal, we are able to use 1.5 Gbps of capacity. This is one because of the software-defined flexible payload. Second, quick adoption of NTN is very important to bridge the digital gap. So in my view, going forward, these are the two suggestions which I would like to give to the operators. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So with this, we'll like to, finally wrap up this session. I would like to thank my panelists for their insightful contribution. I think we covered a wide array of topics today. More positive, of course, there are challenges, but we covered good ground. As I would think, satellite communication will power India towards the next phase of growth and development. We can't be less excited about the impact this will have on the economy and, of course, the population. 1.4 billion people, the impact that it could have would be tremendous. It will strengthen the foundation of India's space industry. It will spawn a homegrown space technology ecosystem addressing some of the critical needs of the nation. There will be an emergence of India-centric business models, use cases that will have a multiplier effect on the growth. This will be India's decade in the space technology, and we are only getting started. Thank you all for joining today.
Thank you for this insightful session. Just wait for the mementos to be presented to the guests, please. Kindly go ahead. Yeah, for a group photograph. Thank you.